Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into it. My name's Hannah. I'll be leading today's Wednesday workshop. Looks like we already have a question. First question is, I read somewhere that the contacts in our transaction can now be organized by role. Can you please show us how to do this? Organized by role. Let's go ahead and head into open to close. Let's go ahead and get into a property. We'll go into our Ivy Lane property. So organized by role. I'm trying to think of what you might have read to and so like to show you guys what it is. We can technically organize our contacts by just dragging and dropping them into whatever order we want. I'm not sure there's a way to do it specifically by role. Like I'm assuming that you mean like a filter. Interesting. So on the transaction itself, I don't believe that there's a way to filter it by role here. I mean, we can obviously search for the contact. If I type in buyer, well, it looks like it's just going based off of the first name for searching for the contacts. This is also searching your database. It's not necessarily searching the list here. Now, when we talk about our contacts tab and we're looking at our contacts here, we can use the filtering here, contact role and filter by the contact role here underneath the contacts tab on the contacts table and segments. But I'll have to look at the you mentioned it was on the change or the idea lab. So let me go to the idea lab really quickly. We'll go to completed. Ability to filter contacts by tags. I see that one, but I'm not sure that one's like from 2023. I don't think that that's the one that you were referring to. Let me see if we've got any from 2024. Nope. The one that I'm seeing here is the ability to filter contacts by tags. Doesn't look like that would be the one that you're referring to. So let me look into it. I'll reach out actually to my team right now to see if there was anything recently published. We do obviously go over the changelog and the things that have recently been published. So maybe that's one of the things and I just didn't see it when I was reading through the notes. Post. Okay. So I'll wait to hear back from them. If you know of exactly where it was, if it was on a transaction versus this, because I know obviously we've got the contact role now here, we can filter it based off of the contact role, but I don't believe this was like a new feature being able to do this filtering. Then I also know that we can filter it by contact tags as well. Cool. Next question. Are there going to be any connections with Skyslope, transaction desk command, or app files for sending documents for compliance? So technically we do have that integration with Skyslope that's available that you guys can use. That integration will allow you to connect to Skyslope. It'll allow you to connect the properties or import or export properties from open to close into Skyslope. There is some functionality with sending over documents to Skyslope if it is a sale. Unfortunately, if the properties marked as a listing in Skyslope, it does not allow it to receive documents. So that is one thing that's kind of a bummer, but it's just a limitation on Skyslope's end. Yeah, no worries, Tammy. I'm gonna have to look into it to see exactly where you're referring to because I know that again, we have this filtering here with the contact role and the contact tags, but on the property itself, I would have to think like, how would you need that filtered by the contact roles here? Like, what would that look like if we had that on here? Because we can drag and drop our contacts into whatever order makes the most sense. You can see I've got buyer up here at the top. If I wanted buyer's co-agent at the top, I just have to drag it all the way up here. Let me just get it to the top. If I go out of this property and then I go back into the property and I go to my contacts, Jen is still saved. The co-buyer agent is still at the top. So it's still saved up at the top here. So that's the part where I was like, I don't think it's necessarily this, but this would be technically if you wanted to make sure you were sorting it in a specific order, you would just drag and drop the contacts into whatever order makes the most sense. So let me look into it. Let me see what my team says about that specifically. As for the other integrations that you were asking about, transaction desk, command, app files, I don't believe we have a integration with them yet. I don't think that there's I don't think that there's been any talk of partnerships with those particular integrations. I know that we're working on partnerships with the other integrations that we work with. But I haven't heard anything that would be something that I could announce today. One thing I will say when we're talking about sending information over, we do technically have webhooks. Webhooks are going to be available for anyone who is on the pro plan or the scale plan. To kind of understand a little bit about what webhooks do, I'll go ahead and click on where it says action. Here, this is going to show you the things that can be done right now. So right now, when a property is created, what do we want to happen next? When a property field is updated, what do we want to happen next? When a contact is created, contact is updated, contact is deleted. So that's really the limits that we have. We don't have any sort of webhooks that are set up for documents just yet. This is something that we're actively working on. That way we can make it a little bit easier for you guys to pull your things with your transaction out of open to close. But right now it specifically works with the field data on those properties. It works with the contacts on those properties. When we talk about field data as well, right? Because there's some things that might be like, wait, well, does this count as field data? Does this count as field data? I'm specifically referring to all of the fields here underneath our field sections. So all of these fields here can be pulled out, put wherever you need to for webhooks. The other data, for example, if we go to agent portal user and we see data here, or that property email address, even the brokerage or any notes, those are not field data, right? It's a different kind of data that we're tracking on that property. So I actually recently saw a ticket, and so I'm going to go over this a little bit just in case that person comes back and they're interested in this. They wanted to be able to use a webhook to pull the property email address into another system to be able to trigger, to be able to have emails, to have documents emailed into a specific property. And they were wondering, well, with the webhooks, can I grab this particular section here? Can I grab the property email address? Like I said, unfortunately at this time, the only thing that the webhooks work with is our fields. However, that doesn't mean to say that we can't technically grab this, right? What we would want to do is we'd want to create, and I'm going to go ahead and create one right now. We would want to create a property email address field. And you could say for webhooks if you want to, or you can just leave it at property email address, whatever makes the most sense. I'm just going to go ahead and create this as a text area or a text field. It'll be here at the top. Let me go ahead and go back to that property, Ivy Lane. We'll go ahead and click on manage. We'll go ahead and add that property or property field. So what I would do is I would have my webhooks set up. Again, just going back to our apps and APIs underneath the webhooks, I would have it that when a property field is updated, and the property field that I would use is that property email address, right? That field that I just created here. And I would say that when I add this, because if I click on it, it copies it to here. And this is a manual process of getting in here. But when I add that to that, then I want this field to be taken out of open to close and sent somewhere else so that we could then have it that it can pull this email and then the documents can get emailed into open to close. Obviously that requires a little bit of coding, a little bit of additional setup. But that's probably what I would do if I was looking to bring on anything that's not a field into my field section. I'd want to create a field for it. And then I would still have that manual process of grabbing that property email address or grabbing those notes or grabbing, just in case, what if because I know that I don't have a good example here, but if the agent shared some intake notes and you need to pull that data elsewhere, I would grab that and I would enter it into the field. That way you could then use those webhooks. When we do have updates with partnerships, though, and we have more integrations coming, we will let you guys know. Similar to how we kind of let you guys know with DocuSign, it had been it had been asked for quite a bit. So, when we're on that track for getting things set up with the other integration partners that we're talking with, we'll definitely let you guys know, either through Facebook posts or from Wednesday Workshop. But great question. Cool. Okay. I'd asked this question before you were the host. Was told we can't organize by file. by role in the file. I think I submitted an idea. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So it looks like you're just providing context to that. Yeah. So when we're talking about on the property, like I mentioned, we can definitely drag and drop them into a specific order, but it's not like they're going to be in alphabetical order automatically. They just go based off of what's been added in here. Usually the only thing that matters to me about the way that these are ordered is that when we talk about it sending out information, right? When we talk about sending out an email to any of our clients, depending on how this is ordered will depend on how people are greeted. So for example, right now I have Justin first and then I have Kelly. So if I go over to my emails and I apply an email template, and I'm just going to grab my intro email to buyer, and I'm going to apply it. What it's going to do is it's going to greet Justin and Kelly in order of how I see those contact roles listed. If I go ahead and delete this email, we go back over to our contacts and I bring Kelly to the very, very top. We'll head back over to emails. We're going to apply that same email template, the intro to buyer, and I select apply. It's going to reorder those contacts. And now it says, hello, Kelly and Justin. So you can see how the order in which your contacts are on a property does directly relate to how those merge fields will be brought in. So there might be some updating it. However, once you've updated it, even if we leave this property and I come back and I go to contacts, Kelly's going to stay at the top. That's where she was put. That's where she's going to stay. And if we bring Justin to the very, very top, then it's going to swap. Cool. Sweet. Looks like we got another question. We just added a second person to our team, and I'm trying to determine the easiest way to pass tasks over without emailing her a link to each individual item. Oh yeah, don't do that. Yeah. Yeah, there is definitely an easier way to handle that. This is what I would do for starters, right? Number one, obviously you're going to want to go to your organization and users. Once you've invited that team member, you're going to go to your team. Okay. You're going to make sure to add her onto the correct team that she needs to be on, whether that's being on the listing team, and this one's Northwestern buyer seller transactions, Southwestern buyer transactions, and this is my VA team. So if she needs to be on the listing team, you'd click on that users, you'd add that party member on there. So let's pretend it's implementation team member. And then you'd want to add on the associated roles with her. So if there are tasks that she was hired to be our transaction coordinator, make sure that you have that transaction coordinator role assigned to her. Once you've made sure that that role is assigned to her and she's been added to the team, she'll get access to all of the properties that are added to that listing team. Okay. So that's essentially what you'll do. Now, to make sure that she actually gets the tasks that she needs to get, depending on how you set up your account initially, will depend on what you need to do next. If you've already made it that your tasks have those roles assigned to them, and so all you got to do is assign the role to the person and boom, all of them are reassigned to her, then this is the end of your steps. That new person logs in, they go to task pipeline or they go to the properties and they see the properties that are there. Specifically, I'd probably start with the task pipeline. You can create a snapshot for them. So I'll create like a snapshot. I can call this, I'm just going to pretend and call it new team member, right? And then here where it says user, we're going to select that implementation team because they're brand new. And then here they'd see all the tasks that are assigned to them based off of that, that role that we have. So here you can see the team is listing. And if I open up this task, I'm just going to click on the name of the task and I go down to, oh, actually, no, that's not going to be the best place to do it. Let me go ahead and just open up who it's assigned to in task conditions. There we go. We can see here that it's assigned to that implementation team. That's based off of how this task template is built out. Now, if you did not have the foresight to set up your task templates with their roles, the next step is going to be going down to your hammer icon, into your templates, heading into your task templates, locating the task template that's got the, that's going to need to be reworked. And so that tasks can be assigned to her. You're going to edit it. You're going to head in here. You can expand the tasks if you'd like to. Sometimes I like to do that because it makes it a little bit easier. And then what I would do is this. I would go down this list and I would select all the tasks that are meant to be assigned to her. So for example, here I just selected one task. I'm going to go down again, select this task, and this task is for her, and this task is for her, and this task is for her. And now I've selected 5 tasks. Here we can see it says change for 5 of those tasks. We'll select on that change button, and then we'll go to task roles. Once we select task roles, now you can select, oh, well, those are actually for the transaction coordinator, if that's the role that needs to be assigned to her. If she's something different, like the listing coordinator, or maybe she's the email compliance or the whatever other roles you have in your account, you would select that particular role, select add, and then say set task roles. And what that's going to do is for all future transactions, she's going to have those tasks assigned to her. So this is kind of why we stress in the beginning that it's important that you think, okay, well, what tasks, who would be completing this task? Is it going to be a transaction coordinator? Is it going to be my, and I'll go up until I see one that's not transaction coordinator. Here we go. Is it going to be my email specialist? Is it going to be, my admin that completes this task, right? So that's how you're going to be going through, and you're going to be making sure that those task templates are set up. Now, for properties that are already existing, you need to update stuff. Well, we don't want to delete the task templates that we already have and then redo them. We can still do the same kind of functionality where we select the tasks, and I'm just going to go through and select a couple tasks. Maybe she's brand new. You want to make sure that she's got a couple that she's doing. We select those tasks. We can click on our options again. We can go to task roles, and then we can assign those tasks to her. Okay. Cool. Looks like we got a follow up. We assign a task to her. Does she get a notification? She does not. She would not get a notification that the tasks are assigned to her. Her job would be, okay, well, this is my new system that I'm tracking all of my tasks in. So she should know, if she was hired by you guys, that if you say, hey, there's tasks assigned to you, and you can set up a trigger if you'd like to say that there are tasks assigned if you'd like. There's nothing wrong with doing something like that. But she should know that this is her new system that she's living out of. And what I would do is I would train her that when she gets into her account, the first thing that she's going to do is head to her task pipeline. She's going to make sure that she has her snapshot filters set up so that just in case she's on multiple teams or she's handling buyer side and seller side, she's handling listings, you have those snapshots set up for her. You show her how to set them up so that she can create custom snapshots. And then you say, any tasks that show up on this list, they are yours. They need to be completed by you. That would be the steps that you would want to take. That's how I would make sure that you guys have it set up, because the whole idea is that when you have someone onboarded and you say, I'm going to give you access to the system, this is what they're going to be living out of. Cool. Let me see if there's any other follow-ups with that one. Cool. Follow-up to the team member task. Would you suggest I put her on a different team, such as pre-listing or under a certain role, under a single team shared with me? That way I can see everything while, especially while training. It's up to you. Technically, if you put her on her own team, so let me go ahead and go back to my organization users. And if I create a new team right now, I'm just going to add a team and call it training. Call it training. And we go over to it, and we're going to add on our support team member onto it. Or actually, no, we'll add Zed onto it. There we go. So I don't think Zed's on anything else. Let me just double check. Oh, Zed's on the training one. Not on this one. Not on that one. Okay, so you just put her on one by herself, right? If I go and I impersonate Zed, and we go over and you're like, okay, so I put you on your own team. You're going to go to your properties. I mean, depending on what her permission set is, looks like there's no permissions for this one. She's not going to see any properties. There are no properties assigned underneath this training team. So she's not going to see any of them. She would want to be on the same team that you're on so that she can see the transactions that she would be working on. So unless you're going to reassign the transactions to someone on that new team, or assign them to her, or add yourself on there so that she can see any transactions that are assigned to that team to you. I would actually just add her to whatever team that she's going to be on, type of thing. So if she's going to be on that listing team, she's going to be helping out with your listing transactions. I would just add her to that listing team. Or if she's going to be on, your buyers and sellers transactions, or buyers transactions specifically, or sell, however you have your team set up, I would add her to the team that she needs to have access to be able to see those properties in there. And then, I mean, for training, like, again, like, it kind of depends. Like if you have a team that you assign some basic transactions to that are assigned to you on there, that's totally fine. You can share it that way. But I would just get her in to whatever team has the transactions that she would be running. Cool. Let me know if there's a follow-up to that. What's the best way to sync with KW command contacts with OTC? We did one big push of data to OTC, but for new people, we have to add. add to the database. We enter them manually. So that's where you could use the webhooks, but I think that the webhooks actually pulls out of open to close. I don't think it sends back into, because this one says when a contact's created, updated, or deleted, right? So this is when we do something in open to close, where do we go from here? And if you're doing KW command first, and then you're coming over into open and close, we don't have an integration between the two, right? So it would be manually putting it into KW command and then putting it into open to close after the fact. So if you are on a plan that you do have webhooks, technically you could use the webhooks to say, when I've created this contact in open to close, I want it to, and you can just say, send contact to KW command, right? When you've created that contact in open to close, the action is that when a contact has been created in open to close, it sends it out. And then here where it says endpoint, this would be pushing it. This would be where you could use like Zapier to hook the data, take that data and send it out to wherever you need to. I've got a couple different examples in here. One of them is like create a property in a Google Sheet. One of them is create a contact status in Airtable. If you guys are interested in learning more about how to use the webhooks, I am not the expert at setting up webhooks just yet. It's a tool that I've had some experience with, mainly working with the Follow Up Boss webhooks one. But for outbound webhooks that are going to be sent through this, definitely use our API documentation to kind of go through it. But we also have partnerships with different people who have done lots and lots of really, really cool things with our webhooks. You can either work with the Bar Agency, the Osiris Agency, you can work with Danielle Poston's team. There's a couple people. So if you're interested in that and you're like, I kind of want to know how other people are building it. Personally, I think that we're going to be looking forward to having a lot more informative and training calls on using these types of tools in the future. Like we'll be having a couple webinars coming up to discuss these kinds of tools and how to use them with those experts. But it's not something that we have on the books just yet. It's just something that we're planning for quarter 2. Quarter 1, what I would like to get set up is getting a scale or advanced training for those of you who are interested in advanced trainings. That's probably going to be number 1 priority. Next priority, depending on the need for it, would be webhooks. So this is kind of how you could start it, but rely on our API documentation to kind of like learn about contacts. You can just, if you're familiar with it, you can go down to contacts. It'll have all the stuff that you need in case you're building and using something like the API as well as webhooks. Those two things usually work in tandem. So you could use webhooks, API, build that to be able to bring it onto whatever you need to. Because, for example, this one's got Zapier developer platform. That's how it's kind of working to be able to bring that information into Zapier. Cool. Sweet. Okay. Got another one. We sent out an initial email and then we get the lender added to the team and title added to the team, and the other agents adds their co-agent. I want a faster way to refresh so each role is grouped. Each role is grouped. You're referring, I'm assuming, on a property. Grouping them here. I mean, the fastest way is just going to be dragging them into the places that they need to be in whatever order makes the most sense. Obviously you can technically, and it kind of depends on how you have your contact, how you're getting your contacts information. You could assign a contact group. So if I assign a contact group, they're going to be brought on in this particular order. Obviously, some of these contacts have assistances, so they'll be in the middle. So it'll be Pam and then the one assistant, Jill, and then their 3 assistants, and then Michael, John, and Edward going to be below that. But I don't know how exactly you have your contacts getting into open and close. If it's information that's new every single time, then a group might not make sense. Or if it changes based off of the different things that the client has chosen versus this is what the agent recommends, then you also might not be able to use the contact groups. It just kind of depends. The fastest way is actually kind of looking at when you're doing your updates with your contacts. Usually what I suggest when you get a brand new property, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I have any properties. Cool, I do have one. Yay. So we've got this brand new property. The first thing that I'm doing before I'm even approving anything is I'm going through making sure that the data is filled out correctly if I need to, updating questions or anything like that. I'm going to head to my documents to make sure my documents are filed correctly. And then I'm going to head to my contacts and make sure I have all of my contacts in the order that I need them in. So that way, if I add in anyone new, I'm going to go ahead and add on Hannah. We'll go ahead and add on Hannah with an assistant. It adds them to the top. Looks like Hannah's added to the top. And then it looks like Jana was added to the bottom. If I need to, I'm just going to drag her into the spot where she needs to be. Or it might have been Jill that brought on. It might have been Jill that was brought on. I'm not sure who I have as my connections, but I would just reorder them here at the very beginning before you've approved that transaction. And then as you get new contacts, put them in whatever order makes the most sense. Cool. Can you explain webhooks for, I'm not going to say that word, and how it basically would work? Okay, cool. So webhooks, let's keep it simple, okay? Webhooks is if you want to take data from open to close and put it somewhere else. If you want to put it into an Airtable, if you want to put it into a spreadsheet, if you want to put it into, or take it and put it into a different software, okay? That's essentially the idea behind webhooks. They call it a webhook because it hooks something from the internet and it can take it to other places. Think about it as like pulling the information out of open to close and putting it somewhere else. That's what it currently does. That doesn't mean that in the future, we're not going to expand on this functionality and make it that things can go back into open to close. Right now, it's taking the information out of open to close and sending it somewhere else. When we talk about what can be sent out, the title is just going to be the name, right? It's going to be the name of whatever it is that you want to do. Here, like I said, I've got a couple examples. Contact deleted in Google Sheets. If a contact's been deleted, delete that in Google Sheets, right? If I keep scrolling down, create property in Google Sheets. When a property is created, create that property in Google Sheets, right? So titling it, that's going to be whatever it is that you want this particular webhook to do. You can put in whatever you want. The action, these are going to be the list of the actions that you can do. So when a property is created and open to close, what do you want to happen next? Property, I filled out an intake form. It's been submitted. It's been approved. Boom, that property's been created. After approval, that's when that property's been created, right? Because you can still say, no, I'm not going to do this property and delete it. Or if you don't get all the data or it comes in without everything that it needs, you can have that choice beforehand. So you've approved it. Where do you need it to go next? Maybe you need to pull it into a Google Sheet for you to be able to pull different kind of reports with it. Maybe you need to pull it out of open and close and pop it into a different integration that we don't currently integrate with. That'd be kind of the idea behind it. Or if a property field's been updated, like I said, they update that field and you need to take that data from that field and you need to put it somewhere else. That would be the idea behind having it that when that field is updated, then it gets pulled into somewhere else. We also have it with the contacts when a contact gets created, when a contact gets updated, or a contact gets deleted. Possibly we need to pull that information. For example, in the KW command process, you enter it into open and close first. And when it's created in open to close, we can use that webhook to create it, pull it out of open to close, and push it into KW command. Now, the pushing part, this endpoint part, right? After this action has completed, where is it sending the data to? This is typically a link. So for example, here you can see hooks, Zapier, hooks, catch, and then it has some verbiage with it or some letters, numbers with it. The endpoint is going to be, okay, now we have this data. Think about it as like a piece of pie on a table. What table are we bringing it to? Where are we taking it to? And the endpoint is the specific routing to take that piece of data and put it wherever it needs to go. So it would be saying like, okay, well, I need to bring it into Google Sheets. So I'm going to use Zapier as example. You can use Zapier to pull that data. When that updates, Zapier pulls that data and it puts it into that Google Sheet and it just puts it into a cell. Adds the data in. Next one, it gets updated, adds the data in. Next one, gets updated, adds the data in. That's the idea behind what this does. Now, typically I see people using webhooks and the API in tandem together because the API has even more functionality with it, right? Our API is very, very friendly if you need to pull the data out from other things or to do other things. So typically I see those two things kind of like working together. A lot of people who are using external intake forms are using both of those in tandem with each other, right? They usually have it that they have it working with that API to get the properties populated in open to close. But if they need to pull the data from open to close anywhere else, they're using those webhooks. Like I said, all the webhooks right now are currently outbound. That means sending from open to close out into whatever you need to send it to. Hopefully that made sense. I know that that's like a really complicated, it's a very complicated question. It should be really simple. But it's kind of a cool tool and I feel like it's one that might be used a little bit more. And like I said, I would love to have a expert call where we talk with some of our integration partners about how to set that up. What are the step-by-step processes to setting up a webhooks so that I can pull data into whatever else I need to pull it into kind of thing. Okay, cool. Cool. As long as you understood what I was saying, that's all that matters in this case. Okay, looks like we have an update about yeah. Okay. So it looks like we have an update about the contacts, but like I'd mentioned, and I was correct in my assumption, it was specifically saying the filtering option for the contact tables. Again, I think I want to say that this is relatively new. I want to say it is. Um, I don't think that the table columns isn't new. You know what I mean? We've always had the ability to bring on that contact role if we needed to, and have it that it shows the contact roles here. But this filter right here to be able to sort it by the contact role, that might be relatively new. Wonder if they meant filtering by option by the context tab for contact roles. That's the only one that we can think of that would be similar to that. Cool. Any other questions for me? Okay, cool. So we have some frequent asked questions that I can go through. Looks like, again, this is something that kind of gets run into often. It's that Google API not being able to send or uh, schedule an email because it just says the API is like, we got a 400 error. As always, my best suggestion is to reach out to us in support when something like that occurs. The reason I say that is because we can send you the direct links to update that integration. To get to the integration, obviously, we're going to go down to our gear icon, get into apps and APIs. And here we see that Google integration right here. It's just going to be a matter of most likely first step is going to be disconnecting it from open to close. And then we will send you guys a fancy link and I'm going to grab it right now. We're going to send you a link and it's going to take you to this page. Once you're on this page, it might look something like this. It might look a little different. You'll go down to open to close. Don't be afraid. You're going to delete all the connections that you have with it. This is just going to refresh that particular integration. So we're going to go back. We know that open to close is gone. I'm going to exit out of that. In open to close now, we're going to go back to apps and APIs. We're going to say authorize. We're going to skip all of the steps. We're just going to say I've whitelisted, connect. It's going to ask you which account you want to connect to. So we're going to want to make sure to choose the one that we just disconnected. So it's going to be this one. And then once we've connected it, we're going to go ahead and say continue. We'll go ahead and say allow. And now we're reconnected. And then what I usually suggest is like go to a property and send out a test email, right? Go to any of the properties, go to emails, send out a test email just to make sure that it's working. So here I could send this out to Jill. She'd probably be very confused as to why she got an email about Kelly and Justin purchasing a house, but I could send it out. Here it says API client right here, and then it'll send out. Email was sent. That's how you know that API is good now. Sorry, Jill, if you're rewatching this and you're like, why did you send me that? Oh, looks like I've got nine unread messages in my inbox as well. Cool. Looks like we've got another question. What is the simplest, what is the easiest way to create a simple report in scale plan? For example, per certain agent name. So it kind of depends on how you have your field set up. But let's go over to our reporting tool and I'm just going to create a new report. I'm going to call it Wednesday workshop 3-6 submit. So it depends on how you have your fields in open to close. Again, we have the ability to do it based off of the agents. So these are my agents. We can say, Justin and the FUB agent. We'll bring those two people on there. I'm going to update their colors so that they're different from each other. And then I'll go to new widget. And if I want to see the closed transactions for 2023, how am I marking those transactions as closed? So I have it set up that if I have them set up to be file status closed, that'll show me my closed ones. Maybe I want to pull my terminated ones as well. I'm going to grab terminated as well. I could grab it canceled, expired, whatever other contract status you want to grab, but closed would probably be the one that you would want to grab for your either file status, contract status, that kind of thing. We'll go ahead and say close. We'll go ahead and say build report. Then from here, we've got these two widgets. We'll next want to go to the year. We're going to want to select 2023. I'm going to go ahead and do that for both of these, 2023. And then from here, we can go into the date. So year reference created, we'll go ahead and click on created. Here we can say closing date or contract date if we want to. So I'm going to say closing date. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing for the other one, closing date. So now we're pulling a report to show in 2023, the file status equal to terminated. How many properties did we have that were assigned to this person and this person? In 2023, same exact thing for these as well. Now, obviously, this is not a very good report because it's not showing anyone. I think it's because I haven't closed any of the transactions from 2023 yet in my account. So let's go ahead and just do that really quickly. I'm just going to go to close transactions. Looks like we've got a couple in here. Let me go to this one. This one is marked as archived. I'm going to change this to closed. I'm going to make sure that it's assigned to one of my agents. Looks like it's already assigned to Justin. Perfect. And then since we're going off the closing date, I don't see the closing date in here. Let me just add that on there. Closing date, update field. Cool. Let me make sure I've got in my closing date for last year. We'll go ahead and say it was October 5th. Cool. So this property is assigned to Justin. The closing date is in here. The status is update to close. If we go back over to that report and I just refresh, so let me just reload them. Now we see that property's been assigned. If we go to list, we're going to be able to see that property that was closed in October. So right now, I think that my widget's a little grumpy too because it's showing this agent as well. But this one specifically for Justin, that's the one that's showing up for him. Cool. Again, not the greatest example just because I have a lot of test data in my account that's not been finalized. I definitely need to come in here and clean it up for the next call. But yeah, perfect. Great question. Let's see. What are the other FAQs that we have? Okay. So yeah, for our calendar invites, we're having some people report that it blocks off the whole day. How do we prevent that? The best way to prevent blocking off the whole day, for example, the final walkthrough date, if you know the time of that appointment, that is what's going to stop that blocking of the whole day. So if I say it's going to happen from, the final walkthrough was scheduled for 1 p.m. And it ends at 2, or maybe it ends at 2:30, and I say update, that's going to update that particular calendar invite to say the date was 1/16/2024 from 1 p.m. to 2:30 to 2:30. Yeah. So as long as we've got a date in there, that's going to help remove blocking the whole day and instead stick it to an actual appointment time. Cool. I see. We've got some questions about excluding. Oh, actually, Looks like Tammy has a workaround for the calendar. Even if you put a time in the calendar, that blocks the agent's calendar if they are not attending. Hmm. Oh, I see. So you have the agent set up for a separate a calendar that they use just for invites. Actually, that's a really good tool to use. Yeah, that's something that I would do. I would have an you could have the agent set up an OTC specific calendar that you use to sync with when you're talking about syncing with it here. That's definitely something you could use. So you're saying that even if you did put in a time, it does block the agent's calendar if they're not attending. That's the part that's curious to me. So is it that you're sending out that invite to, let's say, Jill? Or let's say me, I'm sending it out to me. I'm the home inspector. I don't need to actually be on it. But if they didn't say yes, they're attending it, like they're one of the attendees on it, it still blocks their calendar. This is I'm glad you brought this up because I'll want to make sure that we do testing. They overlay their calendar over normal calendar so it doesn't. Yeah, I know. Guys, Calendly's got some really interesting ways that it like blocks out stuff and times up stuff. Like I use Calendar, or we use Calendly as well to schedule calls. But I'll have to do some testing for this because that was what our suggestion was. And if it does not work and it does block the whole day, even if you do put a time into it, then that's something that we need to investigate and look deeper in. So if that is not working, thanks for bringing that up, Tammy. I'm gonna check in with my team and see what they say. So to confirm, if they send a calendar invite and it doesn't have a time associated with it, it does block the day. But if they have a time associated with it, it does not block the day. We'll look into it. How about that? I think it's still something good to investigate in. Ah, I see. So in your example, like it blocks that time. Okay. But the agent wants to know when it's happening. So if they have a buyer that they're not going to attend, okay. So it blocks the time they can. Okay. So what you're saying is that it does block that specific time, but if they have other things that they'll be attending, they won't be attending it, but they want to know when it's happening. That's where you would want to use a sub calendar for them to be able to push any invites that they will or will not be attending to onto that sub calendar so it doesn't block out their actual calendar from them being able to do other meetings, like if they need to have other meetings. That makes sense. Okay. Thanks for explaining that to me because I was like, wait a second, is it working or is it not working? Got a little worried. Okay, cool. Awesome. Looks like the next one that we have is about excluding property notes from a property. So we have a couple settings in the back end to exclude notes. We're going to head over to that first. So we'll go down to our gear icon. We'll get into our global settings. Once we're in our global settings, we are going to go down to, I believe it's note settings. Perfect. And then here we have some settings here. We have do not exclude property notes, task notes, contact notes, document placeholder, and file notes. So if these buttons are selected, right? So if I say do not exclude for the property, the document placeholder and file notes, what that means is it's going to share those notes to anyone who is a client portal user or an agent portal user. However, if we have it unselected, all of these right now will be automatically excluded. What that means is that you would have to select that particular note that you want to share and make sure that that button has been unexcluded. So if I go to a property right now and I head over to my documents and I scroll down, actually property notes would probably be a better example. Let's go to property notes. Here we can see that if I add on a new note, this is a new note, and I select add, it's going to automatically have this dark color selected for exclude. What this means is that it is excluding this note. It's not going to show it in the client portal. It's not going to show it in the agent portal. So by default, it excludes. If we have that setting enabled, so going back down to our organization and user, or I'm sorry, back into our global settings, down to note settings, if we have that do not exclude the new note, for all future notes that are added, it's not going to exclude them by default. So usually I have people say, well, exclude it for the time being. And then if you want to share that note, just click on that unexclude button. It's easier to keep the information private if you need to keep it private versus having it go and then you have to remember to remove it, right? It's better to be more restrictive versus just sharing everything and having to remove it later. Because then you have to answer less questions if you have it restricted in the beginning. Cool. Intake form templates. Ah, okay. So we're having some questions about intake form and time, and what it looks like to process an intake form. Whenever we talk about intake forms and we talk about bringing things on or sending things out, I usually suggest only having your fields be set up to apply based off of agent submitted. And the reason I say this is because fields is probably the easiest trigger to fire off with an open to close, right? My first field trigger that I have here is that if there will be an inspection or a home inspector has been exists in the property, so it's been added to that property, maybe they added it in underneath their contacts when they were filling it out, that it's going to add on those fields. And that's a pretty simple thing for the system to go through and do. Now, if we were to change all of my triggers from, internally approved to agent submitted, we're going to see some longer processing times just because the system has to run through a lot to make sure that all of the information is actually applying the way that it needs to apply. So that's why I usually suggest have your fields come on through your agent submitted, have your task templates come on through your internally approved. Now, there's going to be some cases where you're going to need some stuff on that agent submitted. For example, I've got this task template here that brings on my main buyers under contract tasks, my purchase contract, and buyer broker documents. I want those to come on based off of agent submitted. I just have that one specific task template that's bringing that on for me. And the reason I have that there is because, well, I need to be able to file my documents. And so I want that purchase contract and buyer broker documents template to be applied right at the beginning. That way I can file those documents appropriately. And then I don't have to remove them later, right? I don't have to move them around later. Having one or two triggers like that is probably good, but if you notice that your intake forms are taking a while, every single time you submit them, you're like, okay, it should be in here. I'm going to intake submission and I see it and it's just loading and loading and loading and loading. I would definitely go take a peek at how you have your triggers sorted and make sure that you have them sorted appropriately, as well as making sure that everything's not super heavy on the submitted side, right? The idea behind having this approval process is so that you can determine whether or not you truly do need all of the things that are going to apply. When we go to our form triggers, I have a ton of triggers down here that may not be applicable for every single transaction. Maybe I've got a super straightforward transaction. It's a cash deal. We're waiving the appraisal, waiving the inspection, waiving home warranty. We're waiving there's no HOA, so it's a super straightforward task, property that I need to take care of. Maybe there's not even a referral, right? So I want to be able to review the information first. And then once I've approved it, the correct task templates get applied. But I also want to have the ability to alter that if I need to. Let's say I got a call from the agent and they go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was like going super fast when I was filling out the intake forms last night. For this particular property, they do have an inspection. So just make sure that you are doing the inspection stuff for it. And so if you haven't approved that intake form already, right, then it's as simple as just changing that question. Will there be an inspection from no to yes? And then it can apply those particular triggers to that property. Cool. Ah, currently, we do not have a way to reject documents. That is 100% accurate. Yeah. So we don't have a way to reject documents. That was another question that we had. Can we reject documents? Not right now. If a document comes in and we don't like it, we can definitely say we're not going to approve it, right? So if going back to this property, if I don't want to approve it, I can click on reject, but there's no other notification from there. It's not going to send back to anyone. It's not going to notify anyone else. It'll just be a rejected document. I want to say it deletes it from open to close. Let's go ahead and click on reject and see what it does. Looks like it deletes it. That's it. goodbye, it's gone. It's deleted from open and close. So if you do click on rejected, just keep in mind it doesn't send out a notification to the agent or to anyone else that that has been rejected. We're going to want to make sure that if you guys do end up having a process where you do have to reject a lot of email documents, that we have like a trigger, an email set up. Maybe at the beginning, our first task for this particular setup is reaching out to make sure that we've received all the documents and then listing any documents that you have not received. We can do that by using our conditions with our with our file roles. Cool. Sweet. Okay, it looks like we had some questions from Facebook as well. Let me just read through them. Yeah. So there's one question about like when I have a property that's terminated, I'd like OTC to load in the terminated tasks that need to be completed before I can close the file. How would I go about doing this? They're on the premium plan with the premium add-on. Technically, you would need to be on the scale plan for automation's sake if you wanted to have it automatically pull on that termination task list. Otherwise, your process is going to be going to that property that is terminating. I'm just going to go to this French camp one. I usually suggest updating the file status. So we'll go ahead and change this from closed to sale terminated. You're going to go through and delete all of your tasks. So uncompleted tasks, delete them. Delete all the API calendars, delete them. That way you don't have any more invites for it. You say close, and then you can apply that task template. This would be the manual process. It's kind of something that everyone would have to do. We'll go ahead and say apply the seller's terminated task list, and then we have that apply. Now, if you're on the scale account, you could instead have it that when it's terminated, when the transactions process is terminated, let me see if I have one on here. Is this it? Cool, it is. I'm just gonna update from sale terminated to to terminated. Okay. From sale terminated, we'll change that to terminated. Let me just go ahead and update that. Let me go ahead and remove that. If you're on the scale account and you have triggers, scale count triggers, here, I just updated the file status to terminated, and here's this task template. I can review it. Yep, that's the one I want, and execute. And then it brings on my task template, or in this case, it brought on my document template for terminated documents. If you're on the scale account, that's how you'd be able to have that automation to be able to update the task list that you need. Cool. Looks like we had another question that was just about teams and setting up teams. And then it looks like we had an update to our changelog. So as always, to get to the changelog, we're going to go to our person icon. We'll head down to changelog, and then that's going to show the recent changes that we've had in the system. Looks like there was a listener trigger and contact groups. There was an issue with the listener triggers that use contact rules for their conditional logic, but now that has been corrected. So it looks like now it does fire off the triggers as needed, and it looks like conditional logic is working. For Skyslope and API field mapping templates. It looks like they were not being able to show while trying to export a sale type transaction to Skyslope. They were showing for listing. Looks like we have fixed that though. Okay, wonderful. So it looks like now there is a sale type API and a listing type API. Wonderful. So I would just, if you're a Skyslope user, head over to your hammer icon, to your templates, head down to your API field mapping template. And when you select add new and you choose Skyslope from here. Just make sure you create one that's for your listing side and create one for that's for your sale side. I kind of have something similar with my follow-up boss deals where I have to choose the API type. It's either going to be deal fields or contact fields. In your guys' case, if you're Skyslope, it would say listing property or listing or sale, right? So that we know which ones we're syncing with. Cool. Cool, guys. Well, that is all I had for you guys today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm just going to go over my end of call information for you guys. As always, if you guys have any questions that we didn't get to, or you started to play with things and you're like, wait a second, how do we do this again? Definitely feel free to reach out to us and support by selecting our little chat icon down here at the bottom and sending us a chat. We love getting Loom videos from you guys or screenshots from you guys. That stuff is super helpful for us to be able to identify what is going on with your system and what you need to do with it. Otherwise, you can definitely go to our Open to Close website. You can head over to our Learn tab and you can join us, or you can use our help guides to also review any of the information that we went over today. If you're looking for more webinars like today's webinar, we're going to go back to that Learn tab and we're going to click on webinars and you'll be able to see the list of webinars that we have coming up. Next Tuesday, we're going to be going over tasks and triggers. Next Wednesday, we're going to be going over Contacts 101. And as always, we'll have our Wednesday workshops where any of you guys are able to join and ask whatever questions that you need to ask. Definitely keep an eye on this webinars page because there might be some other webinars coming up. We're going to be restructuring this soon. Probably not this month. I'm thinking in April we'll be restructuring it as we have we have new content that's going to be coming out soon regarding onboarding. So the way that we handle those classes is also going to shift. Just trying to make the information a little bit more accessible and making it faster for you guys to get in there and get what you need done versus having to run through the 4-week training coming every Wednesday and Tuesday. Cool. Alrighty, guys. Looks like I don't have any other questions. I'll go ahead and close this out. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Make sure to stay hydrated. Make sure to stay warm or stay cold. Eat a snack, stretch your legs, and have a wonderful rest of your week.